I think what we've seen from the president is he has consistently called for more sanctions. I think that we as the United States can actually do much more. And we need to do more in concert with our European allies and partners. While I agree that it's clear that Russia is both directly and indirectly responsible for this downed airplane shot down by the separatists, we've got to look at this in the bigger picture. We've got to look at Russia's incursion on Ukraine, Ukraine's sovereignty, and the fact that any conventional warfare tactics that Russia employs in invading Ukraine can't be countered by Ukraine. They can't go mano a mano on this. So we've got to look to see what support we can give through taking action, through very harsh financial and economic sanctions against Russia, but also seeing what kind of military aid and training and equipment that we can provide to both the Ukrainian people, but also the others, the Baltic states and others who are nearing Russia, so that they can counter these conventional tactics with unconventional warfare. Because that's the only way that Russia will start to get the message that this is not something that they're going to walk in the front door on without any cost to their own people and their own families.
Yeah, there's big news today on Ukraine in the New York Times. You know, there's a report that the Pentagon and the CIA are developing plans to provide the Ukraine with specific locations of the Russian-backed separatist missile systems. And now we have these images that were released today on video. And the intelligence officials say that they showed Russia firing 2 into Ukraine, artillery shells. And should the U.S. be actively engaged in this conflict?
Yeah, again, I think that there is certain types of support that we can and should be providing both to Ukraine, but also to others in the region that are bordering Russia that are concerned that they're the ones who are next. And I think that's where we do have to look at this, that this is not just about Russia and Ukraine, but if Russia is allowed to continue through Ukraine, that it's clear that this will continue and others will be threatened.
Yeah, I've heard analysts this week say, we should stand, we should arm the Ukraine, we should, basically get involved in this military conflict. But when as you said, it's not checkers, it's really chess, because when you have Russia, who actually has been somewhat helpful to the United States interest in Syria, getting rid of the chemical weapons there for the most part, and then also the major work that they're helping do in Iran for the disarmament of their nuclear program. Are these the issues that you have to deal with every day on the Foreign Relations Committee? And are you getting paid enough?
Pay is the least of my concerns, absolutely. But the global foreign policy that we have to consider really does include all of these different implications. And first and foremost, as we make these decisions about where and when to get involved as the United States, whether it means through sanctions or through some limited military support, the first question that we have to ask is what's in the best interest of the United States and what's in the best interest of keeping the American people safe. All of these situations are not the same. And as you know, they're not black and white, and every one of them has to be considered, but with a very clear foreign policy and strategy in mind.
Yeah, and that end game is critically important because as we saw in Iraq, the war that we both served in, there wasn't a strategy, there wasn't an end game, there wasn't really a clear objective, unless, of course, you want to argue that there was weapons of mass destruction and that connection to 9/11, which we both know was a fallacy.
And to follow through on that, one thing that we also saw that went wrong in Iraq, and as we're seeing some of these questions are not being asked of ourselves as the United States often enough, is what are the second, third, and fourth courses of action and effects that impact us? If we take course of action A, what are the next 10 steps or consequences that could occur, which is why we found ourselves in such a protracted conflict in Iraq. Because, for example, you create that vacuum of leadership. It's filled by others who do not have that same intent in mind of a peaceful and stable country. You see that happening in Libya right now as we speak. So as we look at the broader picture, these are the things that we absolutely must keep in mind.